Shine Through Taboo is here to help you turn dead time into meaningful time so you too can live every day and die once. What is dying? Wow. I don't know why, but I want to laugh. I almost feel like it's this huge fucking question. I'm like, I don't know. Like, what is dying? I'm going to start with what I thought dying was or believed dying to be growing up. So my initial belief of dying was you die, which means you stop breathing and your physical body is no longer living, and that's that, right? It was quite simple as a young child. I didn't think about dying as a young child. Very different polarity to my son, which hopefully we'll have a chat with him at one point. Dying was very kind of just, I'm going to say shunned. I think that was kind of like, I'm getting that motion of like pushed away. My first experience of somebody dying really close to me, I was a teenager. My grandmother died just before I was 18. And then my grandfather died just before I met my husband when I was 21. And they were probably my first really experiences with dying, and they were really different with, I guess, how they died and what was happening around them when they died. So what is dying? Dying is the end of life, the end of life for the physical body. And best case scenario, it's old age, right? It's old age, and it seems to be that the body or the mind gives up. It tends to be kind of that. And for my nan, it was her body. And actually, it was the same with my pop. My pop was 89, and both of their bodies had given up. Their mind, definitely could have extended beyond, but the expiry date of their physicality was it. And I had the pleasure, and I didn't really realize the pleasure, and I say that with such deep gratitude now. My nan died at home, in her family home, and we'd all been at the house for the weeks and days leading up. We knew Nan's body wasn't going to last too much longer, and she died, and we were all devastated. We'd gone home for a shower. We'd been sleeping on the kitchen floor kind of thing, and the universe just does its thing, right? And we'd gone home to shower, and we got the phone call that Nan died, and we're like, what? We've literally been there. Okay, all right, like it's happened, okay. And I think I was 17. My auntie and another family member was in with my nan's body, and I wasn't scared. It wasn't something that ever felt scary, and I'm really grateful to have had that exposure with my nan. I'd been sleeping in the bed with her only like literally a day before, and so she looked exactly the same, but her heart wasn't beating, and her body had started to go cold, because obviously that's what our heart does. It circulates our blood and keeps us alive and warm. And we got to wash her body with lavender, and it's such a special thing that sat with me to have that sacred time to really honor the life, the matriarch of our family. And it was really peaceful, and it was really beautiful. It was incredibly sad. It probably was a little bit more eye-opening at the time than I really realized, but as I said, kind of almost 20 years down the track, I'm so grateful to have washed her body and to have been there and to say goodbye and let her know how loved she was. Whereas my pop died in the hospital, and I was there when he died, in a very different environment. So I guess dying, my understanding from those two, I guess, first point of hand experiences was dying was the end of life, your body no longer working. And like Frankie said,
burying in the ground and getting fired.
Well, what happens to our body? What else? And that was kind of it, right? It was kind of simple. Until I was diagnosed with an incurable cancer diagnosis, and that concept of death didn't feel so fucking simple anymore. It attached fear and again sadness, because my experience of dying previously had been my nan and my pop, or my mum's parents, who had all died of old age. And then suddenly at 19, I'm thinking, well, don't think I'll be dying of old age. And that shifted my paradigm of dying. And as I've shared in other episodes, kind of sent me on this journey inwards and outwards to start asking questions and to get super curious. So I guess I'll answer what I now believe dying is. And I can still feel nervous as these words come out of me. I feel like I don't know what I'm going to say. And that's also the trust, right? I don't have to have perfect words. I'm here to share my lived experiences in the hope to open up conversations for yourself, and the curiosity. So I'd also love to know, what's your definition? I want to know from other people, what do you think dying is? I want to hear your experiences with death and dying. That's the whole point of this podcast, right? Death, dying, as well as its polarity, life. So my belief now is that our physical body ends, and the intellect, which is fused into every cell of our body, goes with the body. But I believe there's more. I believe that we do have our physical body, we have our intellect, and we have our soul. And I believe in our living form, our soul is for expansion and creation. And I don't believe that dies. I believe the veil, right? They say this is the 3D. The veil moves. And there's two things that have kind of helped me. Be like, oh, she just gone crazy and made up this certain thing. Well, we all get to choose what we believe, and we get to collect evidence for those beliefs. So I'll share a little bit of that evidence to help me get to this belief. So we've got the three parts that make us human. And when I was 21. My best friend died when I was 21, and she was 20, and her name is Amelia, and I can still feel the grief of her and the love for her, but I know she's here. Amelia and I had a friendship that I guess people will never understand. In person, we met 5 times in a year and a half. But we met at canteen, and we were both diagnosed. And we were both handed a cancer diagnosis in the same month of the same year, different cancer. So when we met, we just were all in. She understood me. She loved me unconditionally. And she's shaped my life beyond what I think she ever thought she could, or that I ever thought she would. Now, growing up, I wasn't religious, didn't really believe in ghosts, as I thought my experience with death was you die, you go to the ground, your family misses you. Amelia was my lesson that maybe there's more to this. So grief is hard, right? And even now it's still alive. And that's what happens with grief. So Amelia died, and it was sudden, and there's a lot of story there that I don't need to share right now, but things kept happening, or have kept happening, over the last 13 years, 14 years. That has given me that faith, right? Remember when I come back to fear or faith? Now, I'm going to share 2 stories, and they both revolve around my children, which I think, to anyone knows me, like I'm an all-in mama bear. Like I'm here to be a mum. And after being told I couldn't have children and going on that huge journey, I arrived as a naive first-time mum in a hospital, ready to birth my baby. And childbirth, like all journeys, nothing's Nothing's the same as someone else. There's no point comparing. Even between my pregnancies and my children, they were completely different experiences. So I've come into this hospital to be induced. I didn't even really know what that was at the time, but I'm like, okay. Into this room, and my husband and I just looking at each other. We're young, we're 29. Just like, oh my God, like, is this gonna happen? How does this all work? Like, has this baby come out? Like, oh God, all the things. And I respect privacy, and the curtain was closed. I was in a share room, but those curtains don't really shield much, right? And this lady who had just given birth to her baby was ringing her family to share the news. I've been in the hospital like a minute. And she rings her family and said, I've just had a baby girl and her name is Amelia Jane. Now, my Amelia is Amelia Janet. We're talking one letter difference. I literally just looked at Andy. I was like, did you hear that? He's like, yeah. And he didn't know Amelia's middle name. And he's like, ooh, okay. Yep. All right. She's definitely here. Like, there's no, you can go one or two ways, right? You either like, that's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, or that faith. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you, right? I'm literally sitting here terrified about to birth a baby. Thank you. And Amelia has popped up in very similar ways over the last 14 years. And she did the same thing with Ivy, where I'd ended up in hospital, not expecting, I thought I was going in for a check. And then they're like, oh, we're going to keep you in and induce you. And I was like, well, that escalated in a way again I didn't see coming. And I was feeling very nervous and very unsure. And who walked in? Hi, my name's Amelia. I'm a nurse. I'm just wondering if we can have a conversation. The doctor just let me know that you're going to stay in overnight and probably have a baby. And I was like, we're good. We're good. So having being open to receive the connection, the signs, the conversation with loved ones. Absolutely, I believe there is more past this physical life that we can see. I've experienced it. I want to hear from you. If you've had experiences where loved ones have passed and still send signs or communicate, like, let's start talking about this. This is my jam. This lights me up. I get way too excited. And I could probably tell you 6 more stories about Amelia. Maybe I do a podcast on Amelia. My beautiful daughter carries Amelia's name. She is Ivy Amelia Menzies. Her initials are I am. And she is a force to be reckoned with. And she smiles like Amelia. Amelia had this smile that could light up a room, and my cheeky little daughter, her smile's going to get her absolutely everywhere. The second part of, I guess, having faith that dying is more than a body lying in a ground or the oven, is Tyler Henry. Incredible human. Again, I really want to, Tyler, if you want to come on this podcast, oh my God, I would wet my pants. He is an American, I'm going to say, psychic medium. He's got a show on Netflix, YouTube, amazing soul. And he shares his gift with the world by connecting people who have lost loved ones with their loved one. And he goes into it very humbly, into each of his sessions, very humbly, very authentically. And he even gets I'm pretty sure it's his mum drives him. So he doesn't even drive. So he goes into these meetings having absolutely no knowledge of who he is spending his time with. But he starts getting messages, right? And he'd be like, oh, I've got like this deep female energy, or there's like, oh, this felt thing. And then he arrives and he's interviewed both celebrities and everyday people. And I think I read something crazy, like his wait list is 300,000 people. Like, he's never going to get to those 300,000 people. Coming back to why I love his work, along with gratitude for him sharing his skill and being able to share that in this lifetime with the world. So often, the people left behind, I think, are the ones who go through the hardest stuff, right? The grief of no longer having the person we love most, or we want to share things with, to include them in, to celebrate, to grieve. A lot of common themes, right? And he sits down in these meetings, and every single time when the loved one connects and comes through, almost, I've just got goosebumps, almost without certainty, the words that they come through are, "I'm okay." It literally brings me, it touches me on such a deep level, because for so long I was so terrified of not being okay, because we don't talk about dying, because we don't know what happens when we die. As well, there's a lot of conflicting ideas of who's God and what happens, and you go to hell and you don't. And I don't need that shit. I just want to stay alive. I just want to be with my family. I want to stay in my bed, you know. And watching Tyler in his gift and in his passion share, I literally was like, oh my God, there's a pattern here. Every loved one is so desperate because of the fear we live with, right? No one's talking about it. He comes back and they all say, please let them know I'm okay. Please let them know I'm okay. And that's where I really have taken the faith that it is okay. Doesn't mean it's not sad. Doesn't mean it's not scary. Doesn't mean we probably all wish we want it to look different when our time comes. But again, we come back to fear and faith. And I know some pretty cool people who've passed over. So I'm also kind of, like I said to Andy, I said, I'm not depressed, and I'm not calling it in as like a conscious desire. But like, fuck, I get to see Amelia again. I get to see my grandparents. Like, I lost another really beautiful friend unexpectedly this year at 37. I've got some cool people on the other side. I have faith that they're okay. And I'm going to use this as my ammunition to love and to live.